Hi, this is Life with Coach Dom, and you're watching Conversations for the Culture, Kingdom Edition. So today we have another special guest. When I think about how we met or how to even describe our paths crossing, I don't even remember when it happened.
I don't remember the date, but I do remember the encounter, and I vaguely remember the why.
Okay.
Yeah, I vaguely remember the why. But I do remember how you used to have a studio on Harlem.
Yeah.
And I went to see the studio to possibly utilize it for some programming that I was thinking about doing.
Mhm.
And in so doing, when I was telling you about whatever my newest, greatest, latest idea was, I had shared with you the why.
Yeah.
And then that led you to share some things about, what you had going on personally at that time. And I'll let you dive into that. And then that's what we wind up having a really derailed, well-off conversation. It was a great conversation, but it was never about what I originally got there for.
Yes. So. Now I remember. Because I remember you being at the studio, but I could not remember why.
Yeah. That was what
were originally
I was scouting, like, oh, I need this. And I was like, oh, okay.
So at one point in my business, I had a 2,200 square foot facility. I had opened up a community center in the front, and then the other part of the business was dedicated to wellness businesses. So I was running my pole fitness studio in one part, and then in the other rooms were women who had wellness businesses, and it was a beautiful experience that was cut short by a storm. And the ceilings caving in, and that's a whole nother conversation that I want to talk about on another podcast, just going into business and just like the investment and jumping out on a leap of faith and it not necessarily going how you had planned. But we connected, and I shared that I don't know how old he was at the time.
He was a little guy, so
he
maybe...
was little. Was he already diagnosed at that point?
He was already diagnosed, so maybe about 3 or 4.
Yeah, because it was new. What year was that? 22?
Yeah, because it was
22.
Yeah.
Okay, so 4 years ago. He's 6 now. So he was probably like 2 going on 3 at that time. And so my son was diagnosed with autism when he was around 2 years old. He was receiving services, early intervention, and things like that from when he was 16 months. And I think I was so excited, and that probably is how we got derailed, to see another mom whose child was older.
Correct.
And so it's like, she already had some time in.
You know everything.
Like, that's how I felt, though, compared to how new it felt for me. It was like, okay, she's like survived this thing that's so. No, and you know how it can be outside looking in, talking to somebody else. It's like, well, your kid's this old, so as somehow, some way you survived, and outside looking in. And I just had a gazillion questions. And what I loved about you is, like, you would think you knew me, the way you were really in here running down, like, you were just such a wealth of knowledge as a stranger, now that I look back at it. And
I'm learning how to temper that kind of. Like, now I have an NPI number. But that can be such a
blessing too, because you never know who really needs the info. When I encounter people, I met a girl in the bathroom one time, and she just was talking about wanting to do makeup, and I'm just in there like amping her up. And she went out and did makeup, and she is killing it as a makeup artist to this day, like doing amazing. And I look back at that moment like, I could have tried to gatekeep. It's not necessarily my personality, but it was like, that helped her, and boom, she just like took off. And that's how I felt from that conversation. It was like, oh.
Yeah, I would never.
I'm about to go advocate for my baby.
And you should.
And I did. Good. And do you want to give like your background?
Okay, so this is my 20th year in nursing. I'm now a family nurse practitioner, board certified. And so I have a focus on the medically complex neurodivergent population, specifically autistic individuals. And it's my goal to service them across their lifespan, because what happens is once they become adults, we don't service them the same way we do children. Mm-hmm. And so I'm newly in the beginning of establishing practice in that. And that takes the time it takes. But that's where I am. That's who I am. I've been an advocate in this space. Dante's 17, almost 18. That's crazy. But I've been an advocate in this space in New York State. Don't tell on me, like about 15 years. For the entire time of his life, right? His lifespan. So Dante's medically complex. He has technically autism level 3, doesn't present that way. And so that's the profound autism.
All the levels and the language, and it changes over time.
It does. And then sometimes, you can kind of be split between levels. We don't really talk about that as providers and clinicians. You can, be high functioning in some areas or high support needs in some areas and low support needs in others.
Let me give a disclaimer, y'all. We are having conversations from the perspective of advocates and moms and people who have lived experiences. If you watch this show, just because I'm a therapist, that don't make me a therapist. Just because she is an MP, that don't make her your MP. Please go to your own provider for any of your personal information. I just always like to put that out there. It's like, someone telling you their lived experiences.
This is not medical advice.
Yeah, it's not medical advice. It's our lived experiences and the things that we've learned over the years.
Decades.
Yeah. So I'm only about 6.5 years in.
Yeah, decades.
But it feels like decades some days. So back in the time when you were just first figuring it out, what did that look like? Like, how did you know? What did that look like in the beginning? Because for me, it was scary.
Right. I don't know how to be afraid. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is when there's something to do, I jump out the window, no parachute. I'll build the house on the way down. Mm-hmm. I am learning at this point in my journey that maybe we could fly and land the plane, and then, create structure and plans along the way. But initially, I literally just told this story like a couple of days ago. I absolutely knew there was one of these things were different about my son when he came out of the womb. Mm-hmm. It was in his cry. I had him by C-section. He was born about 20 days early. And technically preemie, but he was a big preemie, 6 pounds. And he had this shrill. And I remember looking up at my husband like, was that him? Because I don't think he was ready to come out. Like, why did he sound like that? And then he was sick. He failed to thrive. And so for the first year of his life, he was so sick that we actually didn't know if he was going to make it. We were told he wouldn't. And so then after that, he still had a lot of other medical needs and he couldn't hear. So if you can't hear, you can't talk. Yeah. So that was the first indication that for real, something was different. But we were promised that, we'll fix the hearing, then he'll talk. Mm-hmm. We fixed the hearing and baby New still didn't talk. Yeah. And so in comparison to the other children I raised, I had very talkative children. So my oldest son, who's now 29, girl, I know, crazy. I'm 29 too. No, just joke. But my oldest son, who's now 29, he started talking at 8 months old. Give me orange. His IQ is 150. So in comparison, one of these things was definitely not like the other. And so you're not supposed to compare having children and all of the things, but it's hard to look at developmental milestones and not say, why aren't you walking? Why aren't you talking? And so forth and so on. So I knew early on that we had a hill to climb. I did not know the hill was autism. Yeah. Okay. That didn't happen until he was a little over 2. And I'll never forget this doctor. Her name is Dr. Amy Benza. We lived in Ohio, and she did a battery of tests, including metabolic panels and all of the things, to come back with a diagnosis called PDD-NOS. pervasive developmental delay not otherwise specified. And at that time, that was when autism was still classified with Asperger's,
okay.
true autism, PDD, NOS. And at that time, that meant that he was his life was planned to fail, or he was going to fail to thrive in every area: speech, language, relation, all of the things. And that was heavy. And I actually remember the day and where I was when I got that diagnosis. I was at work. And at the time, I was a charge nurse for a dialysis company. And she calls me and she's telling me this. And I like screamed. You would have thought someone had died, because at that time it felt like my Gerber baby did die. And this lady named Sylvia Yorkie, she said, man, she was Jamaican, man, don't cry, Chuki, right? She says, you're going to be fine. I can just imagine you with your briefcase. You're going to march up the stairs in Washington and you're going to change the world for him. And I didn't even know what that meant, but she ministered that to me in that moment. And I heard her, I carry it now, but then it mattered not.
Yeah, because when you're in like the belly of the grief, not much. I think about like the power of presence. Yes. Like, this is when I need presence. I don't necessarily need words. For Zion, similar. Grace, her first birthday is 10 days. I don't even know how to say it. Our birthdays are 10 days apart. So before she was 1, she told me happy birthday.
Exactly.
She told me happy birthday. Like, she was saying stuff. She was doing stuff. It was very different. And with Zion, he was, hitting all his milestones. He came out only a few days early, hitting all the milestones, chunky, chubby, had a couple of GI issues, but like nothing that would forewarn me that like,
this is now going to be our new reality.
I want to say maybe 12 months, 14 months, he started regressing. So he went from being able to say mama and dada and, babbling and doing this stuff to no noises, no nothing. And then just something in my mom, something's off here.
Right.
This is not, and I pushed. And,
well, shout out to you for knowing to do that.
But you know what? I was already in school to be a therapist at that time. So I will say that I did have a little bit of knowledge as far as development and things like that. And I had kind of been working in the field with kids and, so I kind of knew some of the signs. And so I'm like, nope, push, push. And so first they thought it was just global developmental delay is what it was. And they were giving him OT and I think some speech and,
It's like one of the worst diagnoses to get because you actually don't get anything.
It wasn't a diagnosis. That's what it felt like. It felt like it wasn't a diagnosis. We didn't know what was going to go on. And I just remember at the time being in a relationship and like no words could console how I felt as a mom. It felt like every dream and every
gone, like
thing that I had planned and everything like that was gone. And at the time I wasn't truly a believer. So it really felt like poof, everything is gone. This grief is sitting on me. I had a lot of guilt. I just had like all this mom guilt. Like it must be my fault and it's something wrong. And it was just so many different emotions that I went through. But yes, it felt like a death. And there wasn't really any support.
No, none.
They just gave me this diagnosis, pretty much told me he's not going to talk. He's not going to do these things. He's not going to. And
I was told he would never potty independently.
Literally, I thank the Lord that I know him now because, we were told like he's not going to be able to be potty trained. He's going to be in diapers. Like just all of these things that felt like can't. I just remember every CSC meeting just going in there like with a strong face as the mom and like my list of things and leaving weeping, weeping my eyes out because it's really hard to sit there in meetings and things and you're more so talking about everything your child can't do.
Yeah, that's your initial experience at CSC until you have a new lens.
Yeah.
right? So, and like that's the maturation process. Like I don't, as a human, I'm gonna say this because we already made the disclaimer, but I want to make sure I reiterate this. But as a human, I don't think that we ever leave grief.
Yeah,
I think it's like clothes, your favorite clothes, you just kind of carry it with you. And what happens specifically with these kinds of diagnoses is that you live in it cyclically. So you get to a point where you've accepted that life as it is acceptable. But then like when it's time for him to graduate high school, you're in grief again because maybe he's not going to graduate from high school.
Yeah, I feel like it comes in waves. Yeah. When I think about grieving anything, whether it was his autism diagnosis or other things in life, marriage, all types of stuff, I feel like grief, it comes with you and it changes as you change.
Correct.
And so I think about like when I lost my mom, what I realized over time was like every new season that I went in and every new version of myself that came grieved that loss differently.
Exactly.
And I feel the same way with Zion. Is like there was just so much grief. Every new, oh, well, you know, he should be talking or he should be doing this or he should be. It just was like such a heavy grief.
Exactly.
And then at some point, yes, there was like a different lens that I had to start looking through where I went in and I'm like, well, he can do this and he can do that and he can do that too and he can do this and he probably could do that if we could change it a little bit. Then he could do, but it took time. Like it took time to get there. Not too much time because I knew that I had to.
You don't have the time.
You don't have the time to really grieve. And so I would have to pull it together, try to zip it up, stitch myself together to go advocate for him, and then go fall apart after.
And so, like, that's the part that I wholeheartedly feel that when you're diagnosed with something this heavy is missing. Because when children go to the doctor with their moms, dads, families, you're not treating just the child.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be treating and or supporting the family. And so what's missing in that is the support that the family needs to adapt.
Huge change.
To their new normal and the support of what that looks like. So now we were fortunate. Pre-COVID, I'll tell you this, pre-COVID, there were a lot of, and I won't say a lot, but there were way more resources than there are now, right? And so one of the resources was this integrated care model where we were going to the pediatric doctor at the time. And so what would happen is we would go for a primary care visit routine, and then we would go see a clinician, a psychologist. And I would meet with the psychologist and it would be family therapy, right? Yeah. How's he doing? And then he would be demonstrating all of his skills or lack thereof. And then I would be saying what I'm concerned about and or grieving actively, whatever it is. And that beautiful. Worked very, very well, but that was a grant. And then when the grant was lost, you know, UB was doing this, and then COVID came and then all of the things, and then that went away. Now, we still operate, our family still operates in that same kind of model, but that was a decision that I made with the resources that were available in our network. Yeah. It's not a standard.
At all. I feel like we were trying to navigate it, and I was early on in like learning, you know, the therapy field and things like that. And I feel like got his autism diagnosis before my second marriage, but it was still really hard trying to be in partnership while grieving differently, while also taking care of, you know,
girl, we got a whole divorce because of autism and all of the things. What you mean? And then we got remarried again. That's a whole.
And I love that for y'all.
Yeah,
I'm going through divorce number 2 right now.
Oh no, I hate that for you. But we'll talk about that another time. Yeah.
But I do think it is part of the conversation though, because it's like it's so many families of children with autism that they wind up in a single parent household.
And the reason for that is because the piece that I'm talking about related to therapy, right?
Yeah.
So individually we did therapy, collectively, you know, couple we did therapy. And then also our faith was intertwined in that.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of wanted to segue into how was it with your belief system and like your faith in getting the diagnosis? Were you guys already believers? Like what did that look like?
Well, we're definitely already believers. I don't know that we had the same intensity of belief that we do now, right? Like the sky could fall and I still believe God, right? That's where I live now. But I also know God to pick up the sky and allow me to walk forward even when it's falling on others. Right. So I understand that he is truly the path forward, through and out. But that's because I've had an intimate experience and encounter with that. Right. My private prayers used to be, I did not want autism to be the marquee feature in my son's life, which is why 17 years now is the manifestation of those prayers. Right. First, it was I wanted him to talk and we could converse. And if you know, you know, we talk and we converse, and sometimes I don't want him to talk.
I'm screaming. I remember praying recently with my son. Zion was nonverbal up until kind of like around the time I met you. I started doing like these detox baths and things like that, and he did start doing some like echolalia, and we kind of started there.
Echolalia means repeating.
Yeah, where he's repeating. He's hearing music and he's just like repeating it. And then we realized like, okay, music is like his thing. He likes music. He likes things like that. And so encouraging at one point in time, using the tablet was very helpful for him because he was repeating words and we were excited to hear words. And then now it's so funny how the prayers shift because for myself, I had to come out of agreement with his autism diagnosis. What I mean by that is I don't disacknowledge that Zion has all of the symptoms of autism, that this is the reality of Zion, but I also, above all, he belongs to the Lord.
Absolutely.
He belongs to the Lord. The Lord knit him together in my womb. The Lord knows him intricately, and healing is available. And so for me, it was, okay, I'm praying and I'm like, Lord, I want you to give Zion words, and I want him to, you know, give you the glory, and I want him to go out here and be able to like tell his story to, you know, and glorify your name. It is so funny because when he does talk now, how he talks, I was like, Lord, I should have been very specific.
Yes.
When I said I want him to talk.
Because I don't want to hear this.
Because he be just saying stuff. I was playing with him and he's like, I said, Zion, I'm not going to keep doing this with you. He looked me dead in my face. He said, yes, you are.
I'm sorry, sir, what? What?
I kept doing it because I was so taken aback because it's like I've been talking to him for years, whether or not he talks back. And so sometimes when he says stuff and it is very intentional and functional, I am in awe. But it really was a moment right there where I'm like, God, you never cease to amaze me,
blow
to
my
show
mind.
me that you are absolutely real, that you are in control. I remember Zion was going through GI things and it was like keeping me up. He was constipated for weeks at a time, constantly in and out of the hospital. And one day in a prayer group, one of the women was like, you just gotta like really go to the Lord about it. And I was like, God, what do you want me to do? He just told me go back to the basics. And now I make Zion's food from scratch. Can't have anything processed, but happy, giggly, not as constipated nearly as often, not in excruciating pain. And I have that walk now of like, wow, you absolutely belong to the Lord.
Absolutely.
Like he is in control of this. But moments like today, I was telling you about when he got off the bus.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. And he was angry and he was upset and nothing I could do could console him. It's like those moments where I'm like, oh, he has autism.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And so I, like you, have the same kind of faith. I don't pray for healing for Dante. And there are people who do, and there's some people who are like, I wish my kid didn't have autism. I so deeply appreciate my experience with autism because I absolutely know that I am the woman I am because of the parent I had to become for my son. So I don't have that same prayer. Also, Dante is beautifully and wonderfully made as he is, and his autism is a part of who he is. And the way he sees the world, experiences the world is so beautiful. It doesn't need to be different for us. Now, that doesn't change the fact that on Sunday we had a whole crash out meltdown. Yeah. And so, you know, meltdowns happen. Yeah. You know, Zion had, you know, a semi meltdown, you know, getting off the bus. Dante had a big meltdown on Sunday. You know what I mean? And I understand his triggers and all of the things and some of the things that went on. And I try to preserve his dignity now that he's older. So I don't really get so, but I'll say this. I knew before we got there that there was a potential.
Yeah. I think I have to remind myself that because I think sometimes we have such a routine down and I'm like in a bliss, like, you got this, Mom.
Right.
Like, you and Jesus are co-parenting.
Yeah.
And y'all doing great. And then boom. Right. And I'm like,
and so that's the thing. Right. And that was kind of what I alluded to when you first told me that y'all had a moment. You have to be careful about telling a lie. And the lie is that God isn't who God is and that you're not the parent that you are because you're the same parent you were yesterday. Yeah. God's the same God that he was yesterday. God. And so even because autism in this moment is behaving differently than you expected because we were moving and grooving and everything was good, that does not change those two facts. Those are not feelings.
It's not a feeling, it's a fact.
Those
God
are facts.
Not a feeling, he is a fact.
Exactly. And so autism is autism.
Yeah.
On Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, even when things are stable and even when they're chaotic.
Yeah.
Right? I think what happens is sometimes when things are ebbing and flowing with ease, you get lulled, not you, us, we get lulled into believing, oh, it's not bad anymore. It's over. No.
Yeah.
No. It's not that it's not bad anymore or that it's over. It's just things are stable and anything can become unstable, right? Yeah. The economy just got unstable for the last 14 months or so. You know what I mean? So anything can change and does change moment to moment in the context of autism. Yeah. Understanding that allows you to keep first the other understandings that the fact remains that God is the same God of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And you were a good mom yesterday. You're a good mom today. And you will be a good mom tomorrow because you're already trying to figure out introspectively, retrospectively, how, what, so forth and so on. And you know what it could have been? It could have been some kid on the bus just annoying him and he didn't have the words to say that.
Yeah, knowing that it could be like any, thing. I think for myself, one, that is really hard as being a parent who has been diagnosed with PTSD. I can't, for myself where I am now, I can't function in the any moment. It doesn't do well for me and like where the Lord is healing me and how he's growing me through my own, diagnosis and stuff like that. However, yes, I do have to always go back to God does not change. God is good. He's going to work everything out
for your good,
for my good and his glory. And when I look at his diagnosis, for our good and his glory. When I think about the healing aspect, I think as a parent, it kind of goes back to the grieving thing. I think it's not that I don't think that Zion's beautifully or wonderfully made. I know that the Lord knit him together in my womb. I know all of these things. I think knowing that we live in a fallen world and that I have like this little brown boy who has autism and I'm not going to be here forever.
Oh, I love this part. So here's the deal. That's because you have to, not you, we have to play long ball.
Yes.
Right? We're playing long ball. We're not playing for today. And so what happens is two things. You mentioned grief and then understanding that you have this brown boy and you're not going to be here forever. So the thing that struggles when these things pop up is because you're immediately bargaining in the grief process, right? For normalcy.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, I feel like that's a natural thing as a parent. It's like, I want normalcy for my son.
But what's normal, but hear me, and if we don't talk about nothing else, if we don't get nothing out of this, hear me what I'm saying to you. The normalcy or the only thing that's consistent about autism is that it is inconsistent. Yeah. And when you like really fall in love with that, when the blips happen, when the blips happen, it's okay. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt, right?
I think
it doesn't mean that it's not overwhelming. You can have both, right? We know two things can be true. But at the end of the day, you have to, and I'm saying you because you know this, when you reframe what this is, in the moment that he had the rough time getting off the bus, simply was a moment that you were bargaining for normalcy. That's it, that's all. And it feels weird and abnormal that we don't have normalcy. And it's not that you don't have normalcy. This was normal.
Yeah, it's our normal. I think for me, it goes a little deeper because I go between saying solo parenting and co-parenting with the Lord, right? Because these children belong to him first and foremost.
Right.
But it is difficult when you're one person and all of the things fall to you. And then I'm thinking forward, which I know this part is like a prayer point with the Lord, right? Because it used to, not so much now. I used to get so overwhelmed at like, when I'm not here, what does that look like? Like,
it looks like independence.
That's the prayer.
Right. That's the prayer, but that's also got to be your no. Because when we have prayer and we have to have faith and belief.
True.
Very true. It's what I know. It's what I know. True. So, and the reason why I can say that today is, again, the manifestation of 17 years says that it's true.
Give him 7 years in.
Okay. Right, but I'm giving you a hope.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a hope right now.
I have a question. So just to segue a little. Did you consider having more children after Dante?
No. And not because of the autism. Dante was so sick. You know what I mean? And life, so full transparency, I shared that, he's medically complex. Even now, he has something called selective combined immunodeficiency, blah, 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 blah. Autoimmune neutropenia. Like before there was a COVID, mask up, we were quarantined. So we've done the quarantine before the quarantine was a thing. You know what I mean? So we were quite comfortable during COVID. So that was hilarious. Okay. Like we knew how to be home. But we didn't consider having more children because I got divorced when he was 3. And we were divorced and separated and states apart. And talking about faith, like before we could go to church on a regular basis, Dante would be crawling and climbing, running across the pews.
Yeah, church service is really hard for us.
Right.
I haven't been able to fully find a gathering that we can consistently go to, where I don't feel like Zion has to be completely disconnected to be at the service.
So when you say disconnected, you mean using a tablet and all that?
Yeah, just using a tablet. Obviously, it's great to be in the house of the Lord. You know what I mean? Right. But I find when we're at home and we're watching service online,
he's engaged.
And he listens to listener kids, and he'll ask me, and they're so funny because it's like if I won't let him watch other stuff on YouTube, he's like, listener kids? Because he knows if it's about Jesus, I'm going to let him watch it every time.
Yeah, gotcha.
But that was really a rough patch for me in belief, is that I want to have a place that also includes him. But including him doesn't just mean he has to sit on a tablet and sit down for 2+ hours.
Yes, and what I will share with you is how we got to church to where we are now. Okay. So when I first started really with my intense belief that Jesus was my Lord and Savior and all of the things, I didn't take Dante to church because I couldn't. He was too much of a distraction for me to get what I needed. And then his behavior it wasn't just that it was inappropriate, right? Because you're not really supposed to say that. You're supposed to be able to take your kid anywhere. But that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother one.
But he really could not be in the sanctuary, right? And a friend of mine was like, well, why don't you just give him some headphones? This was before now neurodivergence is so widely accepted. Yeah. Everybody has it. They got headphones for babies, infants now.
Yeah.
But he was like, why don't you just give him some headphones? And so I tried it, and it allowed him to go with his tablet
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, my focus wasn't making sure that he had the opportunity to do the things that he can do at home. My focus was, can we get in the sanctuary and sit for 10 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And then after we could do it for 10 minutes, could we do it for 30? And after 30, can we do it for the whole service?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of like an ABA therapy type thing to get him to tolerate being in the sanctuary. And then the inclusive piece was, because I'm on social media telling my bishop, you need to do this and you need, I was vocal. And he was like, that's your ministry. And so then I became a youth ministry leader and I started teaching Bible study on Thursdays to the kids.
Yeah.
And so there he could go because I could control the narrative with all of the children that were there. And it allowed him to get what I wanted him to get from the Lord and also be included.
Yeah, and be included, have community. I think it's hard at times. I think there was a season where I couldn't. Like I needed to go and fall on my face. I was, joining praise and worship. Like I was doing the because I really was like on fire, and I just had this. I need you. I need you, and trying to navigate him running around or doing this or doing that. It was a lot.
It was, and I'm gonna tell you this story. So he was in the choir. And so at the time, my first lady was like, I'm going to take him in the choir, so forth and so on. And there was another kiddo who wasn't behaving his best. And so at the time, Dante was like learning boundaries. And so the kid wasn't behaving. So he took it upon himself that he was going to make the kid behave.
Mm.
And so he popped him. The kid's mother still don't speak to me over this, which I think is strange, but whatever.
I'm on the floor.
Whatever. But nonetheless, my point, I was devastated that happened. I was down the hall in my own choir rehearsal. And at that moment, it told me, now we can't go to choir rehearsal because I can't trust that he'll be safe and keep himself safe and others safe if I'm not in the room, right? Because like you, when you look at Zion, you can anticipate that something is going to happen undesired, right? Same with Dante. I can look, he can blink. And I'll be like, uh-oh.
Yep. We was in service last night, and I just saw him. They're like, can't nobody walk right now. I said, he has to go. I know it. And as soon as I went, he got to, I said, I knew it. I knew he reached his limit. He was at his max. So, no, I get that.
So, in that context, I decided that I wasn't going to go do all of the extra things that I was doing, even though I still needed that community. And it wasn't until, like I said, I surrendered to this was going to be my position.
Yeah.
And
that's beautiful. I love that. I want to segue back to the conversation about having more kids. Because the Lord just got on me this morning. So I wanted to have this conversation because I know a lot of people don't talk about what that looks like after having a child who has a diagnosis, whether it's autism or something else. I did not want to have more children after Zion. I think I was, and it's, like I said, this is before my belief. This is when I'm belonging before I believe. And I was just so fearful of because not only was Zion's autism, I didn't have the best pregnancy, relationship dynamics, things like that. So pregnancy was not ooh, floating on clouds.
I was married, but it was trash.
It was trash. It was a lot going on there.
It was trash.
So she said it was trash.
It was trash.
And for me, I just was like, no, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. And so that was one of the things going into my marriage. When we finally got married, obviously we already had the kid and all the other stuff. And that's something I also learned. The fornicating already happened. Right? The fornicating already happened, right? So repent for the fornicating, stop fornicating. The answer is not just getting married.
No, it's not.
I think that's not talked about enough. The fornicating already happened, baby. That's a whole nother talk. But for myself, the idea of having a child again was so scary to me for a variety of reasons. Pregnancy was traumatic. I have this little baby who needs so much from me. And the idea of it was very just scary to me. I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't see it as a blessing. And I was in a really deep place with it. I don't even think I realized. I was in the car this morning praying about the show and things like that and like what to talk about. And I felt like the Lord was just ministering to me about stuff I hadn't even thought through. So I had got pregnant again after Zion. And I decided not to have the baby. And in my mind, I was just so afraid of what was going to happen in my relationship. Mind you, this was in my marriage. What was going to happen in my relationship? How would I in a lot of ways felt like still a single mom. Like I still felt like all the weight was on me. How would I be able to navigate having another baby? And then I didn't know I was, when you don't know you're pregnant and you're stuff before right. So now I had like this extra panic, like, oh, it's probably something wrong. It's probably something wrong and it's too late and I didn't know and this wasn't planned and I said I didn't want to have more kids and it was fear. It was fear. It was the enemy. Sure. It was me not knowing the Lord. It was me not knowing the word and his ways and everything and not really having support. I didn't have support. I didn't have people to say, to really minister to my heart. I didn't have a partnership where it's like, let me pray, like let us sit and pray about this. Like we are going to pray this anxiety away. We're going to pray this fear away and not in a like spiritual bypassing way.
Yeah.
Like in a strengthening, like with an intention of saying like the Lord can meet us in this. Because now where I am in my belief, I realized that it was less about whether or not I have faith in my partner to be able to not have a traumatic pregnancy again. It was whether or not I have faith in the doctors. It was whether or not I have faith in, me not knowing. It wasn't anything like that. It was about, do you have faith that the Lord knit this baby together in your belly and that he's going to work everything out for your good and his glory? I didn't know that. And I didn't know whether or not that peace. I didn't have that peace. And it was hard. It was like looking back at it, it was very, very, it was very difficult. And I didn't think I was going to go there. I didn't think I was going to talk about it, but the Lord was just literally ministering to me about, and I think about this podcast, it's like I want to move in obedience. It's not about views. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's moving in obedience with what I feel like the Lord is not trying to, because he does if he say he gonna do it, it's what he's gonna do. When I say trying, like what he's doing in my life and what he's like birthing out of me and sharing my testimony, because it is very deep and a lot of people aren't willing to say that on camera, knowing that people are about to watch it and have their opinions. All your business being out there. But if it can help a mom who's like in that phase and you don't know.
I know a mom right now who has a kid who's medically complex and has level 3 profound autism, and she had another baby.
Yeah.
And her delivery was traumatic as all get out. She had to deliver in another city and she was hospitalized and without her husband and a GoFundMe and like all of the things that you worry about after having a kid. Now this baby, from what I understand, is very healthy. And God has carried them thus far, and I believe God will continue to carry them even if the baby, turns out not to be. But she did it.
Yeah.
And I imagine that was scary for her.
Yeah.
Briefly when my husband and I got married the second time, we talked about having a baby, but it wasn't, I was just, in my mind, I was too old to be starting, like Dante, I had just gotten Dante to sleep through the night. You know what I mean?
That was the thing. I'm like,
Dante
I'm
has
not
ARFID,
sleeping.
Like that's trash.
Imagine going weeks. Like that's not even a joke. Like without sleep. I know you can, but I don't think people get that. Like I already have
Dante
a child.
Didn't sleep through the night until he was like 6.
Yep, that's Zion. And still now, it's like I say, like some nights I'm like, oh, we good. Like I'm getting sleep. boom, for the next 3 nights, he's up. I have no sleep. And navigating that as a working professional, like, I'm assistant director. I'm literally a therapist. I have to help everybody navigate this stuff, and I'm not sleeping. I'm like walking around, and all of this, boom, you're pregnant. Like, my flesh was just like, like, my flesh was like afraid. Absolutely not. This doesn't make sense. You just got this, like, da-da-da-da-da. And at the time, just not having that support, not having people to kind of really talk to me. But again, I don't put it on people. I put it on, like I said last time, it took me literally falling on my face to be like, Dom, read the Bible. How are you serving this God that you do not know? You don't know his character. You don't know his ways.
Know his names.
You don't know his names. You don't know his unfailing love. You don't even look back in your life and see all the times that even when you did not serve him, when you were adulterous, when you were following other idols, he was with you. I didn't know that then. I knew fear. I knew trauma. I knew my PTSD diagnosis. I knew I ain't never want to go through nothing like that again. And I didn't know that God was bigger. God was
so much bigger.
Absolutely bigger.
So much bigger.
He was bigger than any type of provision I might have felt that I lacked. He was bigger than any type of time I felt like I lacked. He was bigger than my marriage, quite frankly. Whether or not that was going to follow through, he knit this baby. And so I look back, and I see it through different eyes now. And I just want other people to pause. Right? I can't tell you what decisions to make. I've sinned. I've fell on my face. I've made a lot of decisions that I look back at, and I'm like, dang. But I thank the Lord for his grace and his mercy and his just unfailing love. I'm thankful that, like, he is a forgiving father. I thank him that, like, there's no condemnation in Christ. And so in saying this and putting my business out there, there's no condemnation in Christ.
At least not for me.
There's no condemnation in Christ. And it's like, yeah, there may be people condemning you in the world, but, like, there's no condemnation in Christ. And so I think it's a sensitive thing, and people like to act like fear don't exist. I like
it does. I think your fear, it depends on.
Yeah.
I think it's a yes and answer. Like, you talk about your PTSD diagnosis. I wonder, and I'm pivoting and segueing there, because I wonder if you recognize that your PTSD isn't just centered on whatever initiated that, but it's also centered in being an autism parent.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Complex trauma. I feel like PTSD and complex trauma, also the name of my book, go hand in hand. Yeah. And that could be a whole nother thing on itself. But like, yeah, I think there's like a complex PTSD because I have things all the way stemming from my childhood of where this originates. But as you go through more trauma, I'm going through, domestic violence. I'm going through, the stuff being molested as a kid, being raped as an adult. I'm going through all of these things. Boom, autism, mom.
And so, like, for me, with respect to PTSD, because I talked to my girlfriend about this, she's a licensed social worker too. And so we swap our war stories. Like, so every time Dante gets a sniffle, right? Because I told you he's medically complex. Yeah. Every time he gets a sniffle, I'm, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I had to learn and reframe and reteach and deal with life as it is and life on life's terms, if you will, that sometimes you can have autoimmune neutropenia and just a cold.
Yeah. Everything isn't trying to kill you, Dom. That's the gist of it. Yeah. That's PTSD. Everything isn't trying to kill you. Gotta
right?
Train
the
your body to
think that. The sky's not always falling, all of the things. And so
we could go on and on and on. Yeah. Are there any final things you want to say?
I love this conversation, and I want to say thank you for your transparency, because it is going to bless someone. Right? I think sometimes that as believers, we forget that our experiences isn't just to edify Christ for our good. It's also so that we can demonstrate that our shoulders are this broad because of Christ, and you can do it too for ministry. And I think we forget that because we're in the thing, that we're in the belly of the insert whatever word, whether it's grief or trauma or, whatnot. And, in that space, in that place, I want to minister to you in this moment. I want you to know that Your trauma is not who you are.
Absolutely.
Your PTSD is not who you are.
Yeah.
It happened. It's not happening.
Yeah.
It happened. Yep. It's not happening. Okay. Yeah. And I just felt led to say that to you. Because there's the song that it won't always be like this. And it's not. And there's evidence. There's evidence that there is. I'm gonna close with this.
Go.
Yeah. I'm gonna close with this. When we moved here back to Buffalo, Dante didn't have the words. I also walked off my $100,000 job. Sorry. I worked off my $100,000 job to take care of him. And I didn't know if I was going to return. And God carried us.
So I just want to thank you for coming today. I want to thank you for having like an open and honest conversation. It's been a little minute since we talked, but I really appreciate you coming today and just, sharing your wisdom. And I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching Conversations for the Culture, Kingdom Edition. We'll see you next time.